What's up, Mob Crew? I'm Chris, and today's missing person case is Don. Also, today's person of interest is Olivia. Today's missing person case is today's missing person case is Courtney.
What's going on there, man? We have a kidnapping. Hurry, please, Frank.
What's up, everybody? Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I am Chris with Monsters Under Our Bed. We cover murder, mystery to the paranormal. And today we're going to be talking about the Idaho student case. We have a special guest as well. Before we get started, though, I'm going to quickly plug my affiliate, my Patriot Supply, and then we'll get started with today's show. Mob Crew and friends, are you prepared for the widespread food shortages ahead? Farmers have been warning us for months, but are we listening? They say it's beyond their control, especially with the fertilizer crisis. Bottom line, food shortages will be a harsh reality very soon. That's why you should get ready now with emergency food from My Patriot Supply. And good news, today you'll save 20% on their 3-month food kit. These kits provide delicious, easy-to-make breakfasts, lunch, dinner, snacks, drinks for one person for 3 solid months. Get one for each member of your family while you're able to save 20% during this timely sale. Remember, My Patriot Supply is the nation's largest preparedness company with millions of families already protected. These 3-month food kits, which average 2,000 calories a day, are in stock and ready to go. Order ships fast and free and arrives in unmarked boxes. Go to preparewithwww.preparewiththemobcrew.com. Those who know what's coming are already prepared. Are you? Prepare with www.preparewiththemobcrew.com. All right, so shout out to My Patriot Supply for sponsoring today's video. There's a link down at the bottom if you're interested. So today we're going to be talking about the Idaho students with Steve from True Crime Web, who I'm going to feature here in just a second. But if you're new to the channel, thank you for being here. And we also like to help out and give back by featuring the missing. So we're going to go quickly show a missing person case real quick, and then we'll get started. So this is Tia MacFarland. She's 15 years old, went missing on December 9th, missing out of Monroe, Louisiana. Oops, accidentally hit back on that. So she is 5'5", she weighs 136 pounds, brown eyes, black hair. And she may be in the Monroe, Louisiana area. If you have any information, please call 1-800-THE-LOST. And thank you so much. So now I'm going to go ahead and introduce my co-host for today. So move that. Hey, Steve, how you doing, buddy?
Doing fine, sir. How are you today?
Good, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on. For those that might be new to this channel, would you like to give just a short little background about yourself?
Sure. I'm a retired law enforcement officer. Had a 20-year career. Started off in jail, worked road, became an investigator. Took a lot of training across the board with all different courses in law enforcement, became a state certified crime scene tech, and which greatly assisted me in my investigative career. And I've investigated everything from simple crimes all the way up to homicides.
Awesome. And it's such an honor to have your expertise and kind of explaining on what's going on in this case. Here we're at 6 weeks, still no suspect yet. There is a few updates, and of course we have a video that we're going to break down. I came across where I don't know if it was local news or something, but there's a guy kind of filming into the window when the forensic team was in there. So this must have been like the first week, obviously, first night or two, and looks like they discovered something. And so we're going to kind of break that down. They're actually filmed in 2 different bedrooms, which I didn't notice the first time watching it. So I think that's really interesting. And so if you saw the trailer, you kind of have an idea what we'll be talking about. And then, of course, we'll kind of go over some of the recent updates. And also, it looks like the detective, he did an interview. I think it was posted yesterday sometime. And if you haven't seen that, we'll kind of watch some of that and break down what he says. I think he hints at a few things. Let's go ahead and let's pop this up and hide that. And I just want to say thank you to everybody. If you can support this channel, hit the like button. That always helps. And so we'll quickly just kind of go over just the basic timeline, and then we'll get into dissecting this video with Steve. So just the basic timeline is we have Kaylee and Maddie here, and they went to the Corner Club bar, and they were there from about 10 to 1:32, since that new surveillance photo was kind of leaked out. And then they walked down to the grub truck and were there for about 5 minutes or so, ordering some food. And then after that, they did get a ride from a private driver, as they call it. And he drove them back to the residence, which I think it's about, depending on the drive, it's not far. It's like 3 to 5 minutes, depending on traffic, 3 to 4 minutes, really. And so they were home sometime. They have it at 1:45, but I think it's a little closer to like 1:50, 1:55. And then with Ethan and Xana, they had a party. Here on their timeline, it says they were there from 10 to 11. We know quite a bit about Kaylee and Maddie's, whereabouts, before the murders. I have a really detailed timeline of them. When it comes to Ethan and Xana, we really don't know a lot. That's something that hasn't been really discussed much, is where, besides just going to that party, what they did before or after. But here it says they were there from 10 to 11. And then it says at 1:45 they were at the residence. So I don't know if they probably got there earlier. Not 100% sure on that. But either way, all the students were home. And so here's the 4 students, Ethan, Xana, Maddie, and Kaylee, sadly, would be murdered. So here is more or less Maddie and Kaylee's timeline. And just basically what I talked about. They were at the bar. Then they're seen walking down Main Street, and we have the little grub truck, and then everybody's home by 1:55 a.m., all 4 students. Then the only other major thing that happens before the attack is some phone calls to the ex-boyfriend. Let me remind everybody, the ex-boyfriend has been cleared according to Moscow Police Department. But it is weird, those 10 phone calls, seven made by Kaylee, and then 3 made by Maddie. And those took place between 2:26 and 2:52 a.m. So it looks like they made those phone calls, and then I guess shortly after that went to bed. Then we learned, I think, second or third week about this White Hyundai Elantra that they're looking for. It was captured on surveillance on Linda Lane, and it was driving west on Taylor Avenue. The guy that owns the landlord that owns that that building and the surveillance. He said that this car was seen sometime between 2:45 and 3:15. So that kind of gives us a window of when, if depending on if this is witness or the killers, of when the attack. But they say Moscow Police Department says that this attack happened sometime between 3 and 4 a.m. So now we'll go ahead and jump into this video that I came across that I sent you, and we'll just kind of play a little bit and then break it down. Sound good, buddy?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay. Oh, and I just wanted to quickly say thank you real quick to all the mods for being here and all your hard work. Chat is fast. Okay, we do have quite a few people. Oh yeah, chat is going by. Let me fix that real quick here. All right. Let me know how that is, mods. Put it to 20. Hopefully that'll work a little better. Okay. Oh, and I just want to say thank you for Tom and Molly for the Venmos. And then Under Your Scars, Susan, Donna, and Pamela for the PayPal. It helps so much for supporting this channel. We do true crime, but we also go out and help with cases as well. And we're going to have some projects coming up soon, me and Steve. So, all right, let's go ahead and get this started.
A moment ago, Moscow police confirmed 4 people were found dead in a home just steps away from
North Idaho, where 4 University of Idaho students were found dead in an off-campus house yesterday morning.
Investigation of 4 college students.
It's been 6 weeks now since they were killed, and without many new...
You're welcome, Anna.
We were able to overcome them, and due to the blood trail and the cast-off patterns,
What's up, mob crew? I'm Kaylee.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and skip this part forward real quick. And I just showed you guys just a short clip, but here is the full thing. Okay. So here, music's going to stop here in just a second. So what we got is we got a forensic team that we're looking into the second floor bedroom. As you can see, there is a kind of some kind of framed poster, and then we've got the good vibes thing on this side of the wall. So I do break down the floor plan here, but we have the forensic team, and this is what's interesting is what she's doing right here. And Steve, if you want to go ahead and I'll pause it here. So she's got what looks like a swab, correct?
yes, just a second or two before here, you can see whenever she first pulls out the forensic swab and before she goes to the floor and does whatever she does down there.
Yeah, and so this is, and we've kind of break down the floor plan as well so you guys can kind of get an idea if you didn't see the trailer. But she's clearly, it's tough to say, but it looks like she's got so here's kind of where this is taking place. So here's where the good vibes is at. And we've got 2 screenshots from the window on the bottom, 2 frames here. And then on the right bottom hand corner, I've got it circled where kind of the area that she's kind of focused on. And there seems to be something under this good vibes thing right here, which is kind of like a mirror and a neon light. And I'll, after we play the video, I'll, because I can't zoom in right now, but we'll look at a screenshot and see if we can kind of figure out.
We'll come back to this before. I've got a lot to say about this setup right here. This is extremely interesting and exciting.
Yeah. So I'll play a little bit more and then we'll break this down because there's something that I noticed. And it's, if you look on your left, on the very left, top left, you've got one of the girls and she's kind of stepping and there's actually a step right there. And I'm going to go ahead and play it and we'll get a different look at it here. But I thought this was really interesting, wondering if this killer could have possibly tripped on something. So here's a look at the kind of the source. Ooh, let me go back just a little bit. So there we go. So this is where they're kind of at right now. And there's something, and I know it's not a sink, but it looks like a sink that's kind of like sticking out under this vent right here. Really interesting. And so she kind of almost looks like she kind of leans over. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's just a small little table right here, or like it's stand or something. But she leans kind of past this. Not sure if she leans all the way to the ground, but she definitely kind of leans over that. And maybe she's trying to avoid whatever is in this. But what's interesting is this is kind of the main intersection between Xana's bedroom, Xana and Ethan, and to the third floor where Kaylee and Maddie's, which would lead to Kaylee and Maddie. And so do you want me to keep playing, or do you want to?
It's just whenever you want me to talk about.
Okay, I'll get to I'll play just a little bit more, and then I will get to the where I break down the step, because I'm sure that's probably. So here she is. This is kind of just a replay of it, but here she kind of leans over this, what looks to be, like I said, it looks kind of like a sink, just kind of from far back, and we'll take a closer look at it. But here is a video, because they had a little TikTok video. It shows all the students kind of imitating the other ones. And so just to kind of get an idea of what the floor plan looks like, that was, close to the attack. And so what I wanted to bring attention to is you notice, there's a step right there, which I think is big, because I've lived in homes that have that step that's just kind of in the middle of nowhere, either coming in and out of a living room or something. And I've tripped on it so many times. And it just makes me wonder, especially since this is right into the intersection, into the living room, could the killer have tripped on this? And so I'll let you kind of do your thing, buddy. Okay. So go ahead, Steve, wherever you want to go at.
Right. The area of the main living room, if this is where they're processing the scene through the window, and we're seeing the where the main intersection of coming upstairs before you get to Xana's room and before you go up to the third level. The importance of finding any type of blood evidence in this location away from where the reported victims were found in certain parts of the house, or where we know for a fact that some of the encounters occurred. Finding any type of evidence at a main intersection is huge. Even from a simple single blood drop, you can tell the direction of which way that person's moving. When the blood hits the floor, there's part of that blood droplet with the energy of moving through the air. It will create certain satellites that'll show you the direction, and the blood will elongate and go in the direction you're traveling. So it's extremely important when you find any type of blood evidence. Of course, if it's a blood transfer such as a shoe, it's obvious which way they're going. It's a little bit harder with blood droplets. But what the investigative CSI team would do here is that they'd identify it. They go into the room, they look, they find it, they start documenting it with photography, measurements, and they do all the stuff to make sure that everything is documented exactly where that blood droplet is, which direction it's handling. And it's very important. Let's say, for instance, that blood droplet shows motion from coming upstairs and is heading into Xana's room. That's critical, that we know that this is the direction he took. We don't know that, but I'm just saying that from CSI standpoint, that's things we would be looking for by looking at these blood droplets or shoe prints to try to determine the movements through the building. And also that if we have a blood droplet that is showing this far away from, say that the Maddie and Kaylee were the first victims, and we have a blood droplet this far away from their where they were attacked. This is a long distance for blood drop to fall unless it's something that is being supplied possibly by injury to the offender, and which is another thing. These are the kind of things you look for and try to identify, because they're the little golden egg that you're searching for with CSI.
Interesting. So having that swab, that means that they're
They've
likely
already processed it. They've got it documented. They got it photographed. They got everything measured. They know exactly where it is, and they're ready now to pull that droplet. If it is a droplet, or if it's a shoe impression, it could be, any type of blood spatter, blood stain, transfer. There's a lot of different things that they could be collecting there. But now they're at the process that, okay, when we collect this, which it does from that point on, you're not going to be able to see it in its original condition. That's how come all those steps have to be taken prior to the collection. But once you collect it, then you put it in proper packaging, you secure it, and put it into evidence. And then it just becomes part of the story that goes to the labs. And they would do this throughout the house, just not this one area. They're going every room, and the hundreds and thousands of blood droplets that possibly may exist in here, in this residence, they're going to look at them. They're trying to find not only the victim's blood, but they're trying to find the offenders. And that's what's key. That's what'll solve this case.
Interesting. Yeah. And then, I've seen some people make comments about that step. That's one thing that I had no idea that step was there until I was rewatching these girls' TikTok video. And when I saw that, and then I noticed that, this is kind of around that same area. And then thinking about it, no matter which way this killer's gone, depending on, who was killed first, you would have, I'm assuming, a knife in your hand. So especially if you did maybe trip on this step or a little bit, I guess this would kind of go to say maybe this killer knew the home because he didn't fall and, land on the knife, unfortunately.
Maybe he did. And that's the thing a lot of people are saying and asking about. Could that blood have come off of the knife? Absolutely. But only for a certain amount of distance. You can go upstairs, pull out a butter knife in your kitchen, dip it in a bucket of water. Viscosity is a little bit different, but every time you pull it out of the water and you walk in a direction, you'll see that only so many droplets will come off of that knife from being saturated, and then it stops. The only way that blood will continue without fail to continue along a long path is it has to be some type of a system that's feeding it, some type of injury to the offender that will continue on long distance, 50, 60, 80 feet, 100 feet. That if you have blood trails out that far from a contact or some type of injuries, then we're starting to look at offenders' injuries and blood.
Yes, and we'll kind of talk about CODIS at the end of all this, because that kind of falls in the line of, I know people are probably wondering, all right, they clearly most likely have got, possible some kind of DNA from this killer, fingerprints, blood, whatever. Why is he, why are they or whatever haven't been caught yet? But if they haven't been in the system, then that might be the answer, and some others, I'm sure, as well. But we'll go ahead and play some more here. I see a lot of people saying the same thing about that step. Yeah, I think a lot of people have had that step in their house at some point. Even though it's there, I've done it. I've lived in a house that had a step like that, and just they're always in the worst spots. And even though they're there, I'm sure a lot of people have tripped going down and up. That one stupid step that's for whatever reason has to be there. So now this is the bedroom. This is Xana's bedroom. I didn't realize the first time I watched this. I thought it was the same window, just kind of a different shot. But I'll do a side by side as well to show you that this is actually Xana's bedroom, and they're go ahead and taking a photograph or something here. So that I'll play the full clip. I was just kind of giving people an idea of where the angle it's coming from. It looked to be like a bag or something he had in his hand there. And so that was where she kind of asked him a question. And he kind of shrugs. I'll play it again here. So here's the two windows, just so you guys can see. So we've, of course, got the left wood, which is the living room, and then we've got the right, which is Xana's bedroom here. But you'd notice that this guy kind of asks her a question, and she kind of shrugs. Oops, let me go back. Okay, here it is. And there's the shrug right there. Yeah.
I've been 1,000. I've seen that 1,000 times in crime scenes where you're talking with your partners or your team, and you're discussing how did something happen, what does that mean, how do you have an explanation for it, and you look at your partner and you just shrug your shoulder and say, "I have no idea," or "It's interesting." But I've been a part of that conversation that more than likely they were having at that moment.
Yeah, I have done this so much, Jennifer. I cannot tell you because I'm tall. I have 13 size foot. And so I stub my feet all the time. And especially with those kind of steps too. You know, it's one thing if there's like a set of stairs, but if there's just that one step, I don't know. I miscalculate it all the time. So some people are asking where this footage. I don't know. This was obviously taken early on. I'm assuming within the first week, probably first night or two. And it was, I've seen it before when this all started, but never really put too much, spent a lot of time looking at it. And then somebody posted up on Reddit recently. So shout out to whoever did that. And I'm like, well, now I've got Steve. He can kind of help explain what's going on. But noticing that she had that swab and just the area that this is going on is kind of interesting. So we'll kind of take a closer look here because I can't do it when I'm playing the video there. Because I'm sitting there circling my mouse and just realizing you guys can't see it. But so this is the area that she's kind of taken a sample of. Let me hide that real quick. But there's clearly this is the main intersection, and just like you were talking, depending on what was it, Xana's bedroom first that this killer went to, or was it the third floor? So we already kind of talked about this. Could this also mean the killer knew the step was there and didn't trip and completely fall on the knife? Now the house would have been kind of lit up because it looks like they had all those kind of Christmas lights set up inside. Of course, the neon sign is lit up. So I'm assuming there'd be some lighting, even though it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Not exactly sure how much lighting, but so here's the floor plan at the bottom here. This is where the source is at, which is right in between the intersection of Ethan and Xana and the third floor stairs. And so we kind of answered this question. What kind of evidence could they be looking for and collecting? And so with the swab, that's most likely blood.
I would think it's in the type of crime that's suspected in this, yes.
And so I just wanted to point out, I forgot, I was going to put this in the video, point out what we were kind of looking at just in case, but it's kind of interesting. Curious what people can think what this is. I saw someone said this was a beer pong table. Whatever this is, it's clearly sticking out. Here you can see the vent. You got the good vibes thing here. But it's so weird because it looks almost, I know it's not a sink, but it's kind of weird because it does kind of look like a sink.
When I first saw her leaning over, I thought more along the lines that she's finalizing some notes and about putting the time down of when she's going to be collecting the swab. and she's going to be correct, because everything is timed out as you do this. But I thought that she was just writing on that table. That was my first impression. She could have been collecting some DNA from the table, or she could have just been jotting down her notes. And you have to have some place as you work inside these scenes. You process certain things to get them, whereas you can use them as you process additional things and work your way through the create clean areas that everything's been collected off of. Then you can use that area as you advance into other areas.
Yeah. Chris Davis says, could have been body damage to the door frame from the fight. There was a struggle that happened there. Most definitely. Question, if the killer or killers had not been arrested before other circumstances, then their DNA would not be in CODIS, correct?
Yes.
And just for those that don't know, what is CODIS?
It's the FBI came out with a combined DNA index of where certain criminals, when it first started, that they had to have a search as some of assaults and homicides. It had to be a high type of classification of crime to be put in CODIS. Now they've expanded it, and they keep expanding it to almost all criminals, and which is great, because the more people we have in CODIS in the future, the more likely we are to catch them quickly.
Yeah. So here we are at 6 weeks, and I kind of asked this question before, but what are your thoughts? Here we are at 6 weeks. We're still looking for this car. You think this killer knew the victims and is most likely a younger person and not in the system, and this is why it's kind of taking longer? What's your thoughts on this as far as where we're at in time frame?
Yes, the location of where the house is, and how, we're not talking about high risk victims or a community where this type of crime occurs every week or weekend or month or year. And so when you have such a violent crime occur, there has to be some reasoning for that targeting to occur, and what brought this about and for what reason, who has come into the orbit of these victims at what time and for what reasons. And through the victimologies, they'll be able to establish their relationships with all different types of people, their habits and hobbies. And then, of course, when you look at the offender, and I believe they do have someone DNA profile. You don't go and get in 4 fights in a house and not have some type of transferred DNA. So I have great hope for this case. And it may just be a matter of finding that DNA, but the DNA is there. It's just a matter of finding it, isolating it, and tracking it. And there's a lot of different ways they can track DNA now, that even without CODIS.
Yes, Nancy has a question. If DNA is not in the CODIS, can you use resources like DNA genealogy to narrow down? And
yes, I believe so. They've already, the Golden State killer was a prime example. And, and so many more cases will be solved this way of these code cases due to that, the abilities of those researchers. And it's absolutely amazing the skill sets that those people that do that have.
Yeah. Thank you, Toady UK. Never seen you here before. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you so much for the super chat. K&M last text at 2:56, correct? Elantra filmed at 3:34 leaving. Ooh. I know it was seen arriving between 2:45 and 3:15, and there's some vehicles that are seen leaving. Kind of curious what that 3:34. If you let me know, I have not heard of that particular time, the 3:34 leaving. Interesting. I don't know if that's something new. I'll have to look that up. But thank you so much. That'd be interesting if they have the car. Oh, maybe you're talking about the car that was seen on at the gas station. Okay, I think that's probably what you're talking about. And yeah, they don't know 100% sure if that car is the car that they're looking for. I've heard people say that's a Toyota Prius, the one that was seen at the gas station. So that car may not be the car, because that was not officially released. That was released by the attendant by going in and taking a quick picture of it. And I did a video on that where people had posted that picture to Reddit and said that car looks more like a Toyota Prius. But I don't know. I'm not a car expert, but that's just what the overall consensus was. So Tony D, happy holidays, everyone. Yes, happy holidays. Hope you guys had a Merry Christmas and great New Year coming up. Thank you so much, Tony. Tony D is with Equisearch, who I got to work with him, which was really cool to be able to work with Equisearch. They do amazing work. So going back into the order, so the father, Steve Gonzalez, he had been quoted saying he didn't have to go up the stairs. Now, I think mainly he was just saying that because, he was kind of implying that his daughter was the target, and Kaylee and Maddie were in the same bedroom because Kaylee was going to be moving to Texas, and so she was staying in Maddie's bedroom. But what I also wonder is if there's a little bit more to that. And what he means by that is maybe this killer didn't know what bedroom they were in. So keep in mind on the second floor, and we'll look at just the basic floor plan and we'll come back to this. Now, this is the second floor. The killer most likely came in through the sliding door. There has been a lot of new surveillance footage. It's not new. It's from noise complaints. So basically, it's FOIA requests. But there's been Truth and Transparency. It's a YouTube channel. They've done an amazing job getting a lot of old body cam footage that basically it's all in regards to noise complaints when it comes to this house. It seems like they received quite a bit. I think twice in September. I'm not sure the exact dates, but yeah, it's kind of interesting with all the noise complaints. It makes me wonder if that could even be a motive. Dusty Dent, she's talking about noisy neighbors. That it sucks. Yeah. But it is college, as I understand both ways. Leslie, hi Chris, from one Utah to another. Happy New Year's. Thank you so much. Hope you're staying warm. Thank you so much for the $5. That's awesome. So here's a look at the second floor plan. So maybe the killer kind of knew the house, but didn't know exactly where everybody was staying. From what I understand, the bedrooms did kind of switch a little bit. Dylan was, I guess, in this bedroom here. And then she moved down to the first floor. She would be one of the surviving roommates. So maybe the killer came in, went to Xana's bedroom first, looking for Kaylee, and found Ethan and Xana. And then that's went up to the third floor and then attacked the two girls. And so let me find that real quick here. So question is regarding that statement, he didn't have to go upstairs. Did the killer not know where Kaylee's bedroom was at? And so, he came in through the second floor. You have one empty bedroom. The other one is Xana and Ethan. And so he dispatched them and then decided either it's up or down. And so he went up. And then that was the order of attack. And that's why, he says he didn't have to go up the stairs. What do you think about that?
Well, and it is a very interesting statement. Was he trying, is his theory that either Ethan or Xana were the main targets, and therefore, if they were, the killer already had accomplished his mission. And by going up those stairs, he did something he didn't have to do. And why would he do that? And of course, that would be that, there's several different reasons, but one, of course, is that he found out that the first two victims were not the ones that he was there to target.
Right. And unfortunately, Kaylee, his daughter, would receive the worst of the wounds. And I'm not going to go into much detail, but of course, the coroner did describe that it wasn't like a stabbing, it was tears. She used the phrase tears into the girls, which is just
it's a very confusing statement when they use such language.
Yeah. So, Sensi Wackadoodle, hey guys, do you think there is a higher probability of finding the perp's DNA at the scene or on the victim's remains? Ooh, I'll let you answer. So I think they're asking, is it versus the scene? Yeah.
On the victims, whichever victims that we can identify that was able to offer some type of resistance, yes, those are the ones that you look for. You'll look for those broken fingernails. You'll look for those claw marks. You'll look for different injuries that show that the offender wasn't in total control of that confrontation. And those are the individuals that will get that DNA for you. And you just have to then, once they're in the lab, process them, do those fingernail scrapings, clip them nails, and obtain all their DNA you can, and search for those hair and fibers. And I mean, there's just so many steps that have to be taken when you're processing not only the scene, but when you're processing the victims. And I mean, there's a lot. I mean, it's not a simple task. It's not what you see on TV. There's a lot involved in it.
Yeah. So here I'm kind of pausing again. So to me, like if you kind of look at this, it doesn't look like she's like on her hands and knees. She's clearly standing. And she kind of reaches over this little table here. Let me remove this. Thank you so much, Sensei Wackadoodle. I love that name for the $5 euro. That helps his channel so much. And so let me just go back one more time real quick. But that's just kind of interesting. So here she's got the swab out. And we see the vent. So we kind of know the level of... I keep forgetting you guys can't see my mouse when I'm playing the video. But we can see that there's that right under her arm is the vent, which you can see at the top left. And so we can almost get an idea of the level that she's taking this at. So we'll go ahead and play a little bit more. And almost like it's on the whatever this is, but it's on. And maybe there's other stuff that they're, trying to avoid, not step on. Maybe on the ground as well. And that's why she has to kind of lean over this thing. But she's clearly leaning. Let's see if I can get that right angle. I really wish this video would go to the right just a little bit more, but it doesn't. It bugs me, but clearly she's just leaning right over just to the right of Xana here. But against kind of the wall. So it's kind of interesting. It almost makes me wonder if did the knife tap the wall on the way in or out, or maybe he had a little bit of blood on his hand and grabbed the wall, maybe because of that step that you've got right there, which just knowing my clumsy self, I'd find a way to trip on that step every time. But yeah, clearly something kind of sticking out there. It's interesting. But here's just kind of a look at it, and we'll let me pull up the still image one more time just to kind of look at it here. There we go. So we can kind of see where the vent is right here. And then she kind of leans, and so she's about this level. I mean, obviously, how long are those?
What's
The
it?
DNA swabs.
Swabs. You can get different ones, 6-7 inches general. What most of the forensic to allow. They build boxes and different types of dryer because all blood evidence has to be air dried, and so I mean you can't put them in some type of plastics or anything. Whereas they'll get moldy or bacteria will start attacking, and so they have to be air dried.
Interesting. Yeah. So here, so we can see the vent right about here where it ends. So here she is. Then we have what I swear it looks like a sink. It really does. I know it's not. It's just so funny how it's set up like that. But here she leans over. So I'd say we're about this level here, maybe a little bit lower, but this would be kind of, I guess I should have went a little bit lower with my circle here, but I was using the vent as my point of reference there, but kind of interesting where that location is. I think a lot of people tend to grab, onto a wall when they're coming in and out, or as Ed bumped into something and left some DNA. So many possibilities, obviously, but just knowing that step's there just kind of makes me wonder. And so there's also a new little interview with Detective Fry. We won't play the whole thing. I think it's like 10 minutes.
Pretty good.
No, it doesn't tell me. But we'll play a little bit of it. He does answer a couple questions, and I think he says some interesting things.
We've given people time off. We've adjusted, so we always have people here working on the case. But we've taken some time to spend with our families.
Mm-hmm. And I know that it's been probably incredibly difficult. So can you tell me a little bit about
do we got it turned up all
what
the way?
officers are handling emotionally with this case?
I think all these cases that any law enforcement goes on are emotional. But, we've brought in counselors and helped officers work through that. And we brought in peer support teams to also give support. And we'll continue to do that as we need to. But all in all, the officers are doing really well.
That's good. That's good. Can we talk a little bit about some of the national attention this case has gotten, and specifically kind of the social media aspect and a lot of, I would say, like armchair detectives.
Sure.
How has that been in trying to do the real police work when you're getting...
Yeah, see, okay, so I want to kind of respond to this. I think you've kind of heard, did you hear about this with the case with the TikTok girl who does the tarot cards? And she was accusing this professor she actually has an amazing alibi that probably wouldn't have been too hard to find out if she did a little bit of research, but she was actually in another state during that night, and she was actually on her way back. It was like a 6-8 hour drive or something like that. So she wasn't even there during that night, this poor professor. But yeah, just from tarot card reading, and this is, I'm not trying to say bad about tarot card readers, but just, you got to be responsible. But it's not like she's just some little thing. Like, she's getting like tons and tons of views, and then that rifles people up because they, they're kind of taking that on face value, and then so this person gets harassed, and then even after getting letters, cease and desist, she still kept putting videos out saying that she's the culprit, and there was absolutely nothing to, and so it's just kind of a bummer because there's always people that ruin it for others. There's always a bad apple, and it's a bummer because I was so humble and honored to be able to go on News Nation with Banfield, and it was so cool. Here at Cyber Sleuths are, we're working together, and then I swear to gosh, 2 days later, now it's Cyber Sleuths are the worst, because of this thing, and it sucks, because it's like, there is a lot of good in cyber sleuthing, and it's a double-edged sword, and but you got to be responsible, especially when you have a big following, you know. All right, we'll keep playing.
All of that sort of attention.
I'm sorry, she speaks really soft. He speaks loud, but she speaks really soft. So I might pause it and ask the question for you guys, or respond to the question.
It's new, you know, we're not used to the national attention quite this big, especially with news crews coming to town and whatnot. But, you know, we brought in a PIO team that's helped us out immensely to deal with just the large amount of requests to do interviews. The online stuff, you know, that's going to happen, right? I mean, that's just the day and age we're in. There's a lot of people who are sending us tips and stuff through that, and we're going to look into all those as well. So some of it's very useful, some of it can be distracting, but we're filtering through that, and we're managing that, and the investigators are using the information that's good to continue on with that.
Yeah. Do you mind if we move that mic down a little
Nope,
bit?
that's fine.
It's just kind of rubbing.
Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay.
You said it's been kind of distracting. I'm sure that as you're trying to parse I don't want to say there's good tips and bad tips, because I'm
Right.
sure you're running
Right.
them all out, but as you're trying to parse through all that information, you said it can be distracting, and it's probably a lot of extra work.
Yeah, you know.
So if you didn't hear what she said, she basically, it must be hard to parse the good information versus the bad information, which Steve, you've been there, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And
have you ever?
Extremely difficult job. And, you know, they're interviewing the chief law enforcement officer that's over the case. He has a job to do, and it's dependent upon his the investigative teams he has involved. You know, people are always going to be questioning and engaging the investigations by one spokesperson. That's not the case. You have some extremely dedicated, highly trained individuals that are working the case itself, that have far more knowledge about the case than what the chief law enforcement officer may have. And so you got to be careful about judging the whole investigation just by the spokesperson. It's those boots on the ground, highly dedicated, highly trained individuals that are going to solve this case. And so we just have to keep that in mind. And some of these interviews, you know, people misspeak all the time. We see it in true crime that, you know, everybody overanalyzes some of these interviews. And I tend to agree.
Right. No, and I understand overanalyzing. Just being a YouTuber, you get overanalyzed every video you put out, and it's I don't think some people understand. You know, I'm not perfect. I'm gonna make mistakes all the time. I've made plenty of mistakes, and will, you know, like I said, I'm not perfect, and you know, it's interesting to see some of the comments looking back on videos, but it's like, you know, some people just don't understand on, you know, how easy to pick apart any conversation or any recording with tons of people watching, and of course you're going to make a mistake here and there.
Yeah, and the questions they're going to ask him, of course, are just, you know, he's going to give a standard answer. We're looking into it. You know, we've got the best people working on it. It's in the lab. I mean, there's standard questions and answers. I mean, he's not going to come out and say, this is it. At some point, hopefully he will, that we've arrested the guy, we've got him, you know, and the evidence there, and this is who it is. Sort of like what they did with BTK when that finally broke. So, but I have confidence in this case that I believe they are on the right track.
Okay, I've got a big question for you here in just a minute. We'll play a little bit more of this. I might skip a little bit forward here, get to the
Decide if it fits our case or not.
Yeah, and I know a lot of law enforcement says even if you know something you don't think is pertinent to the case, maybe
a little bit more.
A little bit more about that.
And I just learned about that this morning on the news, and I think I read it in the paper over the weekend. That has to do with the university and the professor. And
okay, scoop forward
that
here.
really is a family decision. That's a decision that those students and the families need to make. But we're going to do everything in our power to continue to provide safety.
I'm just going to change my shot here a little bit. And as I do that, I'll ask you, are there still patrols? Are there still extra patrols around the university, and how long are those going to be in place if so?
So she asked, are they upping kind of patrols and stuff like that?
So we always have patrols going on campus. You know, it's an area that our patrol team, first of all, is up there, as well as some campus officers. But I do believe there's going to be some additional state troopers in the area after the break and stuff. And as well, we've reached out to Lake Tahoe County to provide some extra patrols, just so that people were more seen and they can, you know, feel a little bit more comfortable, hopefully.
Okay. So hopefully you guys can hear him okay. I know she's pretty quiet. You hear him okay, Steve?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. I know there's a few decent questions. It must be towards the end
And
here.
I know that you said you've gotten about 17,000 tips. Have those
17,000?
lead the case in a new direction? Have they helped kind of divert where you guys are looking?
So like I said, we're taking the facts that we know, we're taking all tips that we know, and we're putting those pieces to the puzzle together and painting that picture. And as we continue to investigate, we'll update as soon as we can, but we're moving forward on this investigation, and we're not going to stop until we get a conclusion.
And I know that you can't give us everything, but do you have evidence that can prove the case when and if you do find a suspect?
Okay, so this is a big question, kind of better question. Do you have evidence? Let me, so I don't misquote her here.
Can't give us everything, but do you have evidence that can prove the case?
Do you have evidence that can prove the case?
When and if you do find a suspect?
Like I said, that's part of the investigation, and I know people are frustrated with us holding that so tight. But when we can provide any updated information, we will. I can guarantee you.
And so, Steve, you've been here before on the reason why they have to hold certain tidbits, because if you get people that, you know, when you have to interview them and you're trying to press them on, you know, if you're not sure if they're the suspect or not, you need those details that are, you know, that haven't been out in the social, you know, aren't out in the public. So when they, you know, say something that's certain that.
Yeah, you can screen those false confessions out, and you have to have that, because for whatever sick reasons, people will want to become famous for 5 minutes, and they'll, you know, falsely confess to almost anything. And, you know, some people are just, it's just mind-boggling why one would do that. But you have to keep that information close of certain details, and it's a fine line, because some details will lead you to that one clue, and but you have to do pick a strategy, stick with it, and ride it out regardless. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
All right, we'll play a little bit more. It's almost over. There's a couple of good questions right at the end here.
Can you kind of explain to people who may not understand or may have that frustration of why aren't they telling us more, why you hold back some information?
Well, you always hold
basically what we just talked about,
back information on any case that you work, but one this big you hold back because you want to have an unbiased jury pool. And it's not just about today, it's about in a year from now or whenever we make an arrest and go to trial. We want to have that pool of people who can look at the case and not have all the facts to that to make the decision to find this person guilty.
What's the timeline on DNA or lab results?
That's a good question.
Yeah, that is a good question. So she asked, what's the timeline on the DNA and lab results?
That has everything to do with the lab and how long they take to do what they do. And we don't want to rush that, right? We want to ensure that we're taking our time to get all that right. So we're just waiting for them. it's kind of we have to be patient too. We would love to have all that information.
So at 6 weeks, I mean, I assume you'd have most of your, labs back in this day and age anyway.
There's an interesting thing, not so much on lab, but yes, you're correct. Lab work sometimes, as they have to, determine mixtures and different types of testing and separations of identifying different profiles. Yes, that could be extremely a long process for some labs. But his explanation of why withholding the information was very strange, and I'd never heard that put in such a way that he put it out there that they didn't want to contaminate a jury pool. And so he's not worried about false confessions. And so I find that extremely interesting that who is the individual that they're getting, and I'm always a positive person. I look at it from that when people talk about certain things that, so he's not so much worried about false confession coming in. And so that, he's worried about taking it to trial. And when you start having people that are that far ahead, I find that very supporting that I believe they do have someone in mind.
Ooh, interesting. Yeah, I forgot that we kind of had this conversation before the show. And you had a feeling that this could be on the right path, a little bit further along than some people may think, which is great. Of course, they've got to, I'm sure there's still some work to be done, but there's always seems. Oh,
he's the first law enforcement officer ever said that not to attain a jury pool.
That's interesting.
And I just never heard it put that way before. I understand it, but I've just never heard it put that way before.
Yeah, he's confident. That is good. Yeah, I think it is, actually. I agree. I saw part of this interview. I think the second half, which is the one I hadn't seen the first parts. But yeah, I think that's a good thing. And especially if Steve's saying that. And I don't think had you seen this interview? Because you were basing that off something else it was an interview, but unfortunately I couldn't find it.
Okay. Yeah.
But
no, I hadn't seen this.
Because you were kind of basing that off another interview with one of the parents, I believe.
Yes, one of the other parents talking about that they were confident in the investigation. They're getting firsthand information from the investigators, and that the offender had made a gaffe and had messed up at the crime scene, which I had never heard. And I saw that article a day or two ago, and I'm going to have to go back and research it, and I'll get it sent to you.
Okay, yeah, I'm curious to see that. Okay, we'll play a little bit more of this, and then we're at the 1 hour mark. We're going to go for about another 20 minutes here, and I'll try to get if you've got a question for Steve, if you want to try to put it in. We've got 2,000 people in here in chat, and I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to watch this show. It means the world to me, and having Steve here, it's awesome. If you can, hit the like button. Donating also helps support the channel, but hitting a like, it's free, and I really appreciate it. Here for the truth. Cruel and unusual punishment should be acceptable when a killer is caught, in my opinion. But in this type of case, yes. And Steve, you throw your hands back. No argument there.
No, I've seen the horrors of what this is, and there's just no reason our society should allow certain individuals and animals to be out there and continue. But our court systems, we have a good court system, but at times it does fail.
Okay. More slow? Okay. Okay. It's been a while since we've had okay, bump it up there. I don't know, maybe since I'm using StreamYard, maybe it's not accepting it. We'll see. If that doesn't work, then there's nothing I can do, chat. it might be because I'm using two different services, but hopefully that'll work. Not 100% sure. Okay. Thank you so much here for the truth. We'll finish this. There's just like one more minute, and then we'll get to a couple questions and then recap everything. And yeah.
Information immediately, but like I've told people, you know, real life and the movies are a little bit different. And you know, the movies at the end of the hour, they have all that information. We don't get that quite that fast, but we're going to be patient for that.
Yeah, the CSI effect, right?
Yes.
Everybody's thinking that, you know, it's so quick, and it's definitely not that. And I understand if you can't tell me, but is there DNA in this case?
Like I said, I can't answer that question, but we've collected a lot of evidence, and we're looking into every aspect of it.
But he kind of answers it in a way. He says, we collected a lot of evidence. If you missed the question, she asked, do you have DNA? He says, I can't answer that, but we have collected a lot of evidence. And DNA is evidence, not saying that he just admitted to it, but that's kind of basically saying, yes, we have evidence. And just like you said, he's already talking about we don't want to taint a jury pool. I think that's great insight to kind of what, you know, if you're playing poker face, you know, that's playing poker. You know, I think that's what he. So they do not have a lot more. They do a lot more with DNA these days, like eye color and the area born in, I think. Oh yeah. Yeah, building like profiles these days, like eye color. Yeah, that's in the area born. Oh yeah, they can do a lot. Especially like Delphi case. We talked about that a lot. I forget that service they use, but it's amazing. They can build basically kind of a composite sketch and everything out of kind of a small little thing of DNA. It's amazing. And then, yeah, have percentages off of, you know, like 90% blue eyes. Yeah, it's amazing what they can do. Thank you so much, Paul, for the $5. Yeah, it's come a long ways since I always go back to the OJ trial when like that was kind of when, you know, DNA was supposed to be just kind of getting, you know, on track, but no one really fully understood it at the time. And then, of course, the way they collected the evidence in that case was atrocious. One more, as true crime people, we want to know everything, but law enforcement always holds info close to the vest. They're just, they'd just be telling the perp what they know. Right. And yeah, but they don't want, like Steve says, people coming in giving false confessions, and then they wouldn't know who is the actual perpetrator and who's just trying to get attention. Thank you so much, Becky, for the $5. Okay, so play one more question. I think this is pretty much over.
And I know there's been funding from the governor to aid in the investigation, so how is that money being used?
It's still ongoing, and that's actually at a level a little bit of me. I just present the numbers to our city supervisor and to the mayor, and then they work with the governor to determine that.
So, and I'm still familiarizing myself with all of the aspects of this, but when did that funding come in?
Okay, so that's pretty much it with that, and we will. They did put a press release out. Jump over that. So let's get rid of that. This came out yesterday, correct? And well, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but so at this time of the investigation, detectives do not believe the female professor that was dragged under the bus had anything to do with the crime. So I do like that they addressed the rumors in this. You know, I think, you know, with press conferences and just kind of how on the law enforcement side of things, how there's a little bit more transparency than there has been in the past. I mean, it's not every time. I mean, it's something kind of new, but I do like that they address the rumors. They've kind of done that since day one. There have been numerous inquiries from members of the public and media to verify digital media published online. So that's basically anybody that's turning in any kind of tips via digital. Once a record is released, we can no longer verify it's oh no, this is actually stuff that they release. Once it gets released, then they can't verify it if it's authentic because people alter it. Investigators believe someone has information that adds context to what occurred on the night of the murders and continue requesting additional pictures, video, and social media content. Our focus remains on the investigation and not the individual's activities displayed in the tip. Whether you believe it's significant or not, your information might be the one puzzle piece to help solve this murder. And then the last one is, well, actually, there's two more. Progress continues to locate the White Hyundai Elantra, believed to be in the immediate area of King Road residence during the early morning hours of November 13th. They, regarding this case, they have identified over 22,000 vehicles. If you know of or own a vehicle matching this description, or know anyone who may be driving this specific vehicle on the days, which would be November 13th, please forward that information to the tip line. And at the very end, it says no suspect or suspects have been identified, and only vetted information that does not hinder the investigation will be released to the public. We encourage people to reference the official releases, which there is a link to this, which is all their press releases, which they have a Facebook page, which is great. But it looks like here they've got a little website as well. Maybe I'll have to, I can't clip it right now, but I'll put that in the description for everybody. So, let's see, where are we at? Okay, we got about 10 minutes. See if we can get to a couple questions if you have for the Steve. Sorry, I was starting to read a question. Chris, do you think the DA should be given the family updates under the Idaho Victims' Rights Act? Oh, I think this would be a better question for Steve.
The FBI, there's certain types of support and help that law enforcement gives families now that back years ago we never even thought about. But now they have people that are trained of working with the families, providing certain information and details. Is that always everything the family wants or needs? Probably not, but it is a step in the right direction. And you have victims assistance, and there's different types of programs out there now that specialize just in working with these families, and that's the best path because these families, they know so much about the victims, and they're such a vital part of the investigation. You have to work with those families, and both as consoling them, providing them information, but also gathering information because that victimology is so important to solving so many of these crimes.
All right. YouTube Grandma, thanks for all your hard work on these cases. Thank you so much for the $20. That's so awesome. I love that name. Thank you so much, YouTube Grandma. That's awesome. Let's see if we've got a question. We'll see if we can work it in. We'll go for about another 10 minutes, and we'll just kind of recap everything. If you kind of missed the first part of the show, we were kind of going back and reviewing some footage that I came across where it's the forensic team. They are in one room in the living room. Looks like they found some DNA. She has a swab, and so she's testing that. And then they're also in Xana's bedroom, taking some pictures here. It's not very long, but here's a side-by-side. The left is the living room, and the right is Xana. But this appears to be the same girl. She's kind of got that knot at the top of her hair, so she's the one that collects the DNA. So I don't know, maybe a detective on the left when it comes to Xana's bedroom, probably. Maybe you got the forensic, or are they both part of the forensic team?
I would They're all different members, different aspects. You have different training levels, and you'll have key personnel that's holding the books and pointing the fingers, and that have such a responsibility because they're having to keep track of multiple avenues and directions. And has everything been documented? Has everything been measured? Are we ready to collect? And so, like I said, there's a lot of steps to be taken just for one piece of evidence.
Yeah. Okay, so I am kind of going through and see if I can find a question. If you have one, can put it in the chat so we can try to get to a few before we have to end the live. Yeah, we've been trying on this, especially on this channel, we've been trying not to talk too much about persons of interest just because of the direction it's gone, with the ex-boyfriend and hoodie guy. I mean, I get it. They especially, both of them. You got phone calls to the ex-boyfriend, and then you got hoodie guy who followed them, and and then it's kind of like gets left, so you could see, where they both would possibly have a motive, but I think, they said that they're cleared, and I'm sure it'll be someone close. This is just my opinion. I'm sure it'll be somebody that's been in that house. That would be my guess, just because, wiping out snuffing out 4 lives without being caught, and not making a mistake, like a huge mistake. I think they definitely knew the terrain. Did they conduct a metal detector search behind or around the house for a weapon? Ooh. I don't know. Do you know, Steve? I've seen them outside, but I don't know.
I would assume they would have run K9s, metal detectors, especially in a place where there would have been areas of foliage or leaves or something you couldn't visually search. They may run some things over.
Interesting. Great question, Paul. I never even thought about if that's like standard. I would assume, especially if it was a shooting incident, then the metal detectors would be out for sure. And thank you so much for the $5. Shouldn't that woman have something covering her hair? She's very far back. She's clearly got it all tied up. Do they wear hair nets? Is that really?
Everybody has different protocols on that. And if you don't, of course, you run the risk of, DNA is, you shed it constantly. Either
That's true.
While you're talking, skin, as you speak. There's so many different ways. And I know it's easy to watch TV and say that everyone should do certain things, but they live with the risk, and they're going to be that when they go in and process this thing, they get on the stand, they're going to have to explain themselves if there is any cross contamination and what protocols, and the defense will bring it up. And of course, we have such a CSI effect now that everyone wants to hold. It's extremely difficult to work these cases where you're breathing through a mask, and these full body suits, they're extremely hot.
Yes. I've been in them for other reasons, but yeah.
And so you start sweating, and then that counters the intent that you had. Plus it's not easy to process a scene. And you don't have unlimited personnel to come in. Every department has certain protocols. Crime scenes training says do it a certain way, and it keeps evolving. And every case is different, and we'll see where this goes. How much effort in certain rooms, because we don't know right now exactly the time frame that this was done. We don't know, is this the second or third sweep through the house?
I'll have to see if I can find some information on that.
Who was the first team? Has the bodies already been removed and processed and out of the house? has the first layer been gone? Are we here on the second or third? We don't know all that information. And it's easy to jump to judgment and not defending them. But I've seen crime scenes processed 30 years ago that, it's like a 3-ring circus. And then the states and the FBI realized that this wasn't the way to go. And they started bringing in these protocols. And it's leaps and bounds ahead of what it was. And in another 5 or 10 years, where will it be? It'll be better. But, it's what it is. There's nothing to be argued about either way.
Yeah. So one who sees, and thank you for being a member and supporting this channel. Hey, everyone, I'm a little late tonight. I have a question does Steve think the other 2 roommates may be in danger from the killer?
That will be something they'll be looking at that victimology, and does law enforcement believe that he hasn't finished his mission, because only the killer knew and knows what his mission was that night, who was targeted, why, and has he accomplished that mission. And as a law enforcement officer, if I was working the case, they most certainly would be protected and all their fears answered the best we could, and address that issue, because that is something, until we know exactly who he is, and law enforcement may know, we don't know, but they may know. But until that individual is identified, yes, I would consider him extreme risk.
Yeah. If the killer, for say, was closely related, I think she meant to say killer, not killed. If the killer, for say, was closely related, so like a cousin, would DNA be able to tell that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, everyone's DNA profile is individual, other than twins. Other than twins.
Yeah. So one of my things that I want to do, it's probably an upcoming show, is because it seems to be that when killers dispose of weapons or even vehicles, but weapons, it seems body of water, is that the #1 source for disposing a weapon, like a knife, gun?
As we saw in Delphi with the river search, that rivers, water, yes, you see it so much in the movies and everything, and there's some truth in it. And so it's the easiest way, because there are a lot of people, they just simply dump it in water.
Yeah. Thank you for the question, Bushi, and thank you for being a member. Okay, we'll get to a couple more here. And just kind of going down chats. There are a lot of chat. Trying to get okay, well, let's see. Songsmith. Steve, would they consider the street name correction important? They refer to Queen Street when they said it to be King. They don't correct or verify or address the error. Odd, in my opinion. Was that purposeful?
I don't know. I noticed that early on, and when you look at King and Queen, they're there. I really don't know how significant that is. I don't think it's really anything. I believe the offender knew the residents regardless if he knew the street. But just because they misquoted a name, no, I don't think it's really that big of a deal.
Okay. So one thing it doesn't show me is when people gift memberships. So Becky G gifted 5 memberships. Thank you so much, Becky. I have to go to my other YouTube thing. That's so awesome. So 5 people. It's random. As long as you've clicked the one green present at the top at least once, that's all you have to do. And then you're always have the option to get gifted a free membership. But if you've never clicked that green button, click it. And that'll allow you now and in the future to possibly get a free membership. So thank you so much, Becky. That is so nice. This is a good question. Does this mean is the perpetrator experience in breaking into houses? I guess it depends on if the door was unlocked.
Yes, and you won't believe how many houses are unlocked that I've processed in my career. that or there's a defective lock, or then you do have these career criminals that can defeat just about any system. And that you may lock at lower level, but do you have an individual that can jump up and pull themselves up to a higher terrace and come in like the third level? I've worked burglaries where that's how people go. They go in and get on a roof line and go into an upper window they had access to over a porch area, because those windows and doors on balconies tend to be unlocked.
Okay, we'll get to about 3 or 4 more because it's almost 5 o'clock. Do you think all the DNA results are back?
No.
Oh, really? After 6
No, not
weeks,
all.
you think there's still?
Yes, I mean, you're talking about 4. Now they may have a huge lab out there and everything dedicated towards this case, but you're talking about 4 individual persons that's in one residence, but all of them would be almost processed as separate scenes, because each individual had the opportunity to gather DNA from the offender. And so each of them would be processed, and there'd be a lot of lab time.
Yeah. This is a good question. Do you think Kaylee and Maddie were asleep? They called Jack at 2:56. That was the last phone call out of the 10 phone calls between the 2 girls. And the murder was sometime between 3 and 4, especially if the vehicle, say the time window was at 3:15 at the latest, but I think it might have came earlier. So the attack might have happened, in my opinion, a little more closer to 3 to 3:30. But yeah, it's interesting that, they just got done making these phone calls. You'd think it'd be a little bit of time for them to actually fall asleep. I think that's a great question. But in that Dr. Phil episode, they did kind of mention that like the bodies were found in the same bed. I don't know. I mean, that's coming from the Daily Mail lady, but she was on Dr. Phil. She seemed pretty confident when they were talking about that. But that's how they that's what they said anyway. I can't, that's just speculation, but they said that they were both in the bed. So I guess that would mean that, they unfortunately wasn't able to put up a fight because they were asleep. But interesting question though, because you would think they would be kind of up for a little bit. Actually, Nellie B, I addressed that. I think the slider lock was broken. Law enforcement put okay. I didn't see the law enforcement part. Law enforcement put a stool across it to keep it closed. Actually, me and Steve discussed that because every time you come in and out, you have to keep a log. And I think, let's see if I have it here. Yeah, I mean, maybe. I think just from... So as you can see, these little pieces of tape, every time they come in and out, they have to basically sign on this. Basically, this is kind of like a time card to keep track of who's coming in and out. And I think that they put the stool there so they wouldn't have to break the tape.
Yeah, more, when they break it for the day, of course, when you have someone that's keeping the crime scene log of everyone that enters and exits, but it's a day by day, how many times have they used this as a point of entrance? And so they wouldn't put it up that, 5 minutes you went in, processed the scene, came out, and then you re-secured the residence for another officer. It's going to be there in 30 minutes. But for every day that you're there, such as you work your full day of investigation in there, collecting evidence, you'll secure the residence at the end of the day. And then when you report back in there for that next shift on the next day, then you'll break that seal, keep another time log for the duration of that day. And as you can see on this, we're looking at several days of that being done. So they spent a lot of time in that residence.
Yeah, that's not a bad question though, Nellie B. If the slider lock was broken, I just from seeing and like I said, shout out to Truth and Transparency. It's a YouTube channel. They've been showing a lot of body cam footage that's come out recently, and they were getting a lot of noise complaints. And so when the officers like show up, and this is like sometimes at middle of the night, like I think at like 1 o'clock in the morning, there'll be people that don't even live. Most of the time, the person that comes to the officers out of the house are people that don't live there. And they're like, they have to go call somebody, like Maddie or Xana. And so like most of the time it's somebody that doesn't live there that's in the house that responds, when the officers first come. So I think it shows that these people, unfortunately, they just had a lot of parties and a lot of people kind of coming in and out. And so I would lean more towards this thing was unlocked, but it's definitely a possibility. But yeah, I never thought about securing it like that, but it's possible. Yeah, Kathy agrees. Yeah, it could have happened. All right, let's see if we can get to one more here. And I just want to say thank you to everyone for taking the time to watch the show. We're almost at the end of the year. We're going to do kind of a end of the year show where we kind of look back at everything that we did this year and maybe have some special guests on. Not sure which day, but that'll be towards the end of the week. So I'm excited for that. And I've got some stuff for the members coming today, if not tomorrow. Okay, I'm trying to find one more question here. Okay, Nancy, Steve, would the blood in the home be moldy by now, or do you think they have it climate controlled?
Well, there's a natural process of how blood dries. Starts from the moment after it's first exposed to there, and the processing of the scene. I believe they even had a HVAC technician come in. Probably to address that issue. You remember that was mentioned to make sure that we did have proper airflow. To possibly prevent such an occurrence. That they didn't want what they're saying about mold and stuff to build up, and that's some good insight that may explain the one reason why they did bring in to make sure that we didn't have that issue arise.
Yeah. So I'm going to do one more question, then we'll. Why did the two downstairs not hear? Two of the victims had defensive wounds, which means they fought back. I know at least one. Maybe there might have been two. I know Xana for sure. Didn't they vocalize that? You would think. Even the other ones that didn't fight back, you would think there would at least be a scream, And this is interesting because there was a guy that supposedly lived there. That was on the news recently, and I played the interview, and he says that you could hear everything in that house. Well, what's interesting is some YouTubers have looked into that guy. Now, I'm not saying that he didn't live there, but he definitely didn't live there, at least when he said he did. So he might have been wrong. I don't know, but he might not even live there. So that's something I want to look into as well. But it'd be interesting. But yeah, you would think you would hear that. Even if the house is, kind of more soundproof than not. But to be able to do that to four people, to anybody, it's just terrible. So proud of you, Chris. Thank you so much. So for those that don't know, my special co-host is Steve from True Crime Web. He has his own YouTube channel. If you could go over there and please subscribe to his channel. He's got amazing insights, and we try to have him on at least once a week. We will be doing some collaboration with working with some possible cases, Dylan Rounds. We're going to try to hopefully finish that case up, and then there's some others that we're going to try to meet halfway somewhere. That'll be hopefully at the beginning of next year when it kind of warms up. So like I said, we don't only cover true crime, but we're actually trying to go out help these cases. And so right now we're just kind of bogged down with winter.